All right, it looks like we are back up and running and hopefully a lot more smoother. Are we back up and running? Let's see here. Waiting for Facebook to pop in. All right, if you're just joining us, a little bit of a technical glitch here tonight. I don't know exactly what the deal is with our stream, but hopefully we've gotten it figured out. Just waiting for the stream to catch up. It's on such a big delay that it's hard to check it at the same time. Anyway, we're going to try and go and fight through the technical issues. See if we are up and running here on Facebook and YouTube. HockeyTalkShow.com, by the way, just to peruse all the things that we're up to lately. We talked a little bit about Mike Babcock making cookies. The fact that the guy approaches cookie making the way he approaches a hockey game. Like, there's no second gear for Mike Babcock, which is why I love him so much. Talking about the National Hockey League and expansion. We're talking about the, let's see here. All right. When in doubt, just start the whole damn thing over again. I think we're better now. I think we're in now. I have no idea. I could be talking to myself. I could be talking to all you guys. I haven't the slightest clue, to be perfectly honest with you. But you know what? We're going on with it anyway. It might be an omen. I'm thinking that this might be an omen because if you can see by the topic of the show, I don't really want to talk about this anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the weird thing. Like, I don't want to be here talking about this. This is not what I want to be chatting about tonight. My prized possession, my favorite player, abandoning my team. I have no idea. But we're here and we're live, I think. I honestly don't know at this point. Let me know in the comments, thumbs up and thumbs down, if we are good to go. Thanks, Ant, for checking in. Eddie on YouTube. Are we good on YouTube now? Things driving me damn crazy here. Think it's an omen. Should we not even talk about this? Should we kill it? Bad show? Scrap it? We'll start tomorrow? We'll go extra long tomorrow? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't really want to be talking. This is not really, honestly, this isn't the show that I want to be doing, but we're going to do it. Fair and balanced. Like Fox News, baby. All right, so we went over the Babcock thing. That was pretty hilarious. I'm not going to go over it again. I'm just going to, thanks guys, appreciate that. I'm just going to link it in the description below. Mike Babcock talking about making cookies, like he's talking about putting together a game plan. He's all sitting there like, we got to be focused. We got to be ready. We need chocolate chips. It's like, you know, it's like instead of we need a good four-jack, he's like, we need chocolate chips. You know, it's pretty hilarious. I love that guy. Again, I think we haven't really tapped the full potential. Daniel, what's up, man? Thanks for being here. Thanks. Appreciate the feedback. We haven't tapped the full potential of Mike Babcock. Like, I think he's just a riches of entertainment to go through. John Tavares, you guys want to hear about this? Let's talk about this. It's interesting, too. Speaking of the Islanders, Bo Horvat of the Canucks, fractured foot, out for 6 weeks. So that really moves Matthew Barzal up on the list of Rookie of the Year. Clayton Keller, he's still in the mix. But excuse me, not Matthew Barzal. I was going to say this helps Barzal in a sense that Bozer, the rookie over there, this is going to hurt him too with Horvat being out. I don't know if it guarantees Barzal Rookie of the Year, but it's certainly going to hurt the Canucks and their chances at the incredible run that they're on, by the way. I just can't believe the run that they have been on. It's been unbelievable. The Vancouver Canucks are far exceeding everybody's expectations. I mean, they really, really are. And between Bo Horvat and this young kid that is in the run for Rookie of the Year, it's been amazing. But this Bo Horvat has really been the center of this team. And by the way, all the talk around the Canucks is how this team has really reset itself from being the Sedin's team to Bo Horvat's team. And I wouldn't be surprised if they see Brock Bozer. I wouldn't be surprised if they slap the old C on his chest sometime soon. So that's pretty big news, though, today, that Bo Horvat is on the... All right, the comments are hilarious so far tonight. That Bo Horvat is going to be sidelined for 6 weeks. Detrimental to Vancouver, who's 5-3-2 in their last 10, sitting in that last spot in the Pacific Division. We'll quickly talk about the Buffalo Sabres. I do want to get into this. We didn't really get a chance to touch on this too much, but Matt Moulson was waived the other day. Here's a former 30-goal scorer. Here's a proud top-line player, especially during his time with the New York Islanders. Did okay with the Kings, came to the Island, did super well, went and signed that big contract with Buffalo. You know, found himself in this weird place where he just couldn't produce. The Sabres just can't get out of their own way. And Matt Moulson is waived. And the amazing thing to me is, with all the teams desperate for scoring help, Montreal, Arizona, I mean, nobody took a chance at picking up this guy. And it's all because term. The thing that I think everybody needs to keep in mind with these players is, especially around free agency time, money means nothing because these teams have to be up around the cap floor. And the difference between the floor and the ceiling is like $20 million, which isn't really that much wiggle room when you get down to it, when you're messing around in the $50 to $70 million range. It's term. GMs don't want to have these guys hanging around who aren't producing being overpaid. You can overpay a player for 1 year. They have no problem with that. Just look at Patrick Marleau. They're overpaying him until they can't anymore when they have to pay Austin Matthews. And nobody's bothered by that deal. It's honestly genius. I hailed Lou Lamoriello for that deal. But you look at Matt Molson, he's in the 4th year of a $25 million contract. He's due to make $5 million next season. He stinks, and nobody wants to touch him at 34. I mean, not even the, Coyotes. Not even the Coyotes want to pick this guy up, who are at the floor, which really makes me nervous because that means that they really, I mean, if they can't commit $5 million to Matt Molson, they are really in a lot of trouble. But I don't know what they're going to do over there in Buffalo. I mean, they got some issues that they got to deal with. They really do. Just, shelving Matt Molson down in the minors can only do so much for you. And they did swing a minor trade too. They acquired Scott Wilson from the Detroit Red Wings. Wilson has a Stanley Cup under his belt. He's okay. They send the 5th round pick to Detroit in exchange for Wilson. They're up there acting like this is going to be the spark that puts them on the right track. I mean, I don't see it, man. I mean, nothing against Scott Wilson, but I just don't see it. So I got my eye on the Buffalo Sabres as they continue to struggle. We'll talk NHL expansion, and Seattle continues to be a super hot topic in the National Hockey League. And I said this yesterday. I said, it all depends. We'll be able to tell a whole hell of a lot by who speaks about expansion yesterday. It'll go all the way from Gary Bettman down to Bill Daly, down to one of the owners, down to one of the general managers. And that's sort of the run right there. That's the list. That gives you the idea of importance. And then how much they actually say about it matters as well. Do they comment on it? Do they just flat out say, well, we know that they, got approved on the renovation? Do they say, well, we know they got approved on the renovation and ownership and blah, blah, blah? What they say will tell the tale. Well, apparently they said a whole hell of a lot, and it came from Gary Bettman. I mean, the way it appears, the National Hockey League is pushing all in on Seattle. And we talked yesterday on the show about leaving options and, giving Calgary those outs to go ahead and, threaten their local government to make sure, like, we have options. We can move here. We can move there. No, I mean, literally, Bettman was like, we are open for business in Seattle. From the Board of Governors meeting in Florida, the article reads, and we'll get this direct from the horse's mouth. We could probably get some more in depth on it if we had to go elsewhere for it. But this is all coming from the man himself. I get booed wherever I go. Gary Bettman on expansion to Seattle. A Seattle ownership group. I mean, they moved past everything to going right directly to the group. A Seattle ownership group has been authorized to file an application for an NHL expansion team. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman said Thursday. The fee would be $650 million. And Commissioner Bettman said the NHL is looking at only Seattle for possible expansion. Seattle City Council approved the $600 million renovation at Key Arena on Monday. The arena, which opened in 1962, was home to the NBA Seattle Supersonics from 1967 to 78, 85 to 2008, prior to the team relocating to Oklahoma City. Seattle would become the NHL's 32nd franchise. There could be a preliminary ticket drive, Commissioner Bettman said, similar to the one conducted by the Vegas Golden Knights before they were awarded an expansion franchise with an expansion fee of $500 million. Although Seattle has never had an NHL team, the Seattle Metropolitans, who played in the Pacific Coast Hockey Association from 1915 to 1924, won the Stanley Cup in 1917, defeating the Montreal Canadiens 3-1 in a best-of-5 series. So before the National Hockey League had entire control. In fact, I guess that was like really the last sort of year that this was going on, because the NHL is celebrating their centennial here in 2017. So that would really explain that. There's a lot of interesting things in the mix here. But yeah, that's exactly what happened back in 1917. The Seattle Metropolitans defeated the Montreal Canadiens 3-1 in a best-of-5 series. So hockey in Seattle looks like it's coming. Looks like it's coming. Eddie on YouTube. That guy is looks like the Count from Sesame Street. He does look like the Count. 32 NHL teams. So stupid. The Seattle Metropolitans had a really awful logo. I hated it. I really, really didn't like it at all. I'm going to bring it up for you. It was Seattle spelled inside of an S. I mean, it was 17. I don't want to come down hard on anybody here, but I mean, it stunk. The jersey stunk. It looked a lot like the Minnesota Wild jersey, though. Let's bring up Google Images. Yeah, there you go. There it is. Look at those jerseys. Holy cow. Yeah, see the Seattle and the S? Nah, it's just not appealing to me. You think that's a good name for them, the Seattle Metropolitans? I don't think so. I don't like it. I don't want to sound like a homer here, but as a Mets fan, I got to say the Metropolitans belong to the New York Metropolitans, not in Seattle. Is Seattle really a metropolitan area, by the way? More so than New York? It's like the New York Rangers and the Texas Rangers. That kind of aggravates me a little bit. You know? Oh, like this. What is this? A spec jersey? Oh, look at that. See, this is aesthetics. I'm telling you, if you guys want to look up jersey blogs, the best one on the planet is aesthetics. They do a phenomenal job, and they accept concept jerseys from people. So people who just design jerseys for the hell of it. That's a good look for the Seattle Metropolitans. You'd have to go Starbucks green, don't you think? You'd really get that Starbucks green going in there. Daniel, mother of God, that is horse poopy. Looks like someone barfed up a bunch of candy canes. Yep, pretty much. Can't disagree with you guys on those comments. Yeah, it is not good. I don't doubt that they'd have a better look nowadays, but even if you went with something like this green jersey here, I just don't like the idea of the Seattle Metropolitans. I like the Flying Tuna better. I mean, that was a more creative name. Go with the Flying Tuna. Get them guys in there from the fish market. Come down in there. I'm just blown away by the thirst of Gary Bettman to get into this market. I mean, a couple of things jump out at me right away. One, no regard for Calgary. This is off the table for them now. I mean, they still have Houston. They still have Quebec City. Kansas City has a long shot as far as cities go, good markets go with arenas that are ready to go. But they just disregarded Calgary altogether. Two, the fact that this wasn't on the agenda whatsoever for the Board of Governors meeting, and now it is literally the top story coming out of the Board of Governors meeting. Seattle unskilled laborers. Meh, not bad. Not bad. I like the Seattle hipsters the best. I still like the Seattle Starbucks. I think that's the way to go. Seattle coffee beans. Seattle depression cases. Seattle umbrellas, I think, would be the best thing, because then you move a lot of product on the side. Get those official umbrellas going. That'd be nice for everybody involved. So the disregard for Calgary, the fact that this wasn't on the agenda for the Board of Governors meeting, the fact that the move to me would have been to keep this mum's the word, just like they did with Vegas, you know. And they blew that up. Gary Bettman comes right in and just starts throwing things around. Seattle beans and Seattle grunge. Seattle grunge is not that bad. I kind of like Seattle grunge. You know, often you don't. Usually it's, you know, you get Stars, Islanders, Rangers, Devils. it's a multiplier. But, you know, with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Minnesota Wild, you kind of have parlance to get in there and do something like the Seattle Grunge. God, that would be funky. I would like that. Put Seattle, good for you, Sandra. Put Seattle Grunge on the list. I like that. I like that a lot. Seattle root canals and Seattle bongs. These are all, honestly, I'm not going to take anything off the table right now. We're in the phase of no idea is a bad idea, but I do like Seattle grunge a lot. You do. I think to me, you do have to vote between Jimi Hendrix and Kurt Cobain and, you know, the whole scene in the 90s. You gotta, it should be music centric. It really should be, you know. The Seattle Totems were a thing for a while there in Seattle. There certainly is that Pacific Northwest culture that you want to rely upon. That's where the Vancouver Canucks get their colors from. So all of these are good ideas. The Seattle Rain, that's a good idea. I like the Seattle Rain a lot. Very native to the area. Rain is a huge thing for them. Seattle drain pipes, I also like to throw on the list. You know, Seattle gutter cleaners. I don't know. Again, no idea is a bad idea in this little scenario. No idea is a bad idea. But I think that the fact that Gary Bettman came right out and addressed this when it wasn't on the agenda for the Board of Governors, to me, is super, super interesting. The other thing to think about, the totems are still around. Thank you, Sandra. The totems are still around. Brian, the Seattle Bums, tons of homeless. Seattle Bums would be good. Seattle. Remember when bums used to be a good thing with the Dodgers? That's really changed. That has really changed. I like the Seattle Bean Bums. You know, just a lot of homeless people with coffee. You know, that would be good. That would be really, really nice. Anyway, back to the surprising thing that Bettman stood out and talked about this. You know, Bill Foley is a great guy. Vegas is a great city. Everybody was afraid to go there. But the NHL went. But they were quiet about it the whole time. You remember how coy Gary Bettman was? And if you don't, I'm going to tell you something. He was coy. You had a billionaire owner who was willing to pay the $500 million fee. No bones about it. He had land. He had, you know, backing. He had corporate sponsors. He had everything. And the NHL was still like, we got to explore it. We got to figure it out. We have to see. They made them do the ticket drive. You know, they came in there. By the way, and Bill Foley liked to talk a lot. He said a lot of things. They started a website, vegashockey.com or whatever it was. They started a Twitter. They started getting vocal. And then what happened? Bill Foley shut up. And you want to know why? Because Gary Bettman called him into his office and he said, if you want a National Hockey League team, you're going to shut up. Don't say anything. If you really want this, you got to be quiet. And that's what he did. And he shut up. And they did the ticket drive and they sold the tickets and they did what they had to do. And they eventually came around and they got themselves a team. This, I mean, the city, I mean, by the way, I don't even know if the mayor approved this yet. Now, not that the mayor would stand in the way of this because it's kind of a no-brainer, but those little technicalities that are obviously going to go your way, usually the classic thing to do is to wait for them to go your way and then make all the moves, you know? Seattle Meth Labs, this is pretty good. Seattle Poorly Tuned Guitars. Seattle Distortion Pedals, that might be nice. You know what I'm saying? They score a goal instead of a horn, just a huge screeching distorted guitar sounds rings through the arena. That might be an actual thing right there. That might be nice. With this, they're just like, they're skipping all the little tiny details. I gotta tell you, I'm shocked. I'm shocked. And consider this too, by the way. It was, what, 3 years ago that Vegas was awarded the team? I believe just 3 years ago. And Bill Foley paid $500 million. In 3 years, you mean to tell me that the value of an expansion franchise went up $150 million? What am I missing? Honestly, what am I missing? I mean, they literally pulled a number out of the air and it looks like they're going to get it. $150 million in 3 years. I don't know any other asset on the planet that has matured $50 million a year for the last 3 years? What other asset? I don't know much about Bitcoin, but I don't even think Bitcoin's gone up that much. I mean, $50 million. And for what? I understand when you sign a new TV deal and you're making more money that way, that's one thing. I understand when, you come in, you bring in a new attendance records or whatever, that's one thing. If a team is sold for a higher value, that's one thing. None of that has happened in the National Hockey League in the 3 years that the Vegas Golden Knights came into existence. So this is just the audacity of the NHL saying, well, we want $650 million now. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. Everything that has happened with this expansion has gone flat out against what the National Hockey League's typical way of practice of doing things has gone. Everything right out the window. Discreet, patient, secretive, take your time, all that stuff right out the window. I mean, right out the window. The city council approved the renovation Monday. Thursday, the NHL is like, hey guys, send over that application and a check for $650 million, please. We'll get things going. We'll get you guys into a Seattle Reign uniform real soon. It's going to be great. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. That's unbelievable to me. That means that when all is said and done, this franchise will have cost $1.25 billion. $1.25 billion. $600 million for the arena renovation. $650 million price tag for the team. $1.2 billion at the end of the day to bring a team to the Seattle market. That is a lot. Now, the only thing that I can tell is the fact that the one thing that this does tell us, the Vegas Golden Knights, massively successful. I mean, massively successful. The experiment has worked. Because you don't jack up your price $150 million if you don't think it's worth it or you are not sure that it absolutely can happen. They're capitalizing on the good fortune of the Golden Knights. You're damn right they are. $50 million a year worth. $50 million a year worth. Could you imagine what this price tag would have been if the Golden Knights were sitting in last place right now? I mean, there's no better scenario for the league. There's no better scenario. They can go out now and go to Jerry Bruckheimer, who is the group that's interested in bringing the team to Seattle. They can go, look how great the Vegas Golden Knights are doing. Look, you're going to have a first place. Give us $650 million, and I'm telling you, you'll have a first place team by the time 2020 rolls around. I mean, it's insane to me. Insane that they're doing this. Good on them. Good for them if they can do it. But it's a little insane. I mean, it's downright crazy. We're 10 minutes in front of 8 o'clock here. I don't like to go into actual hockey game time. But as I can see here from some of the stuff coming in, you guys are watching the games on mute and listening to the Hockey Talk Show. That touches my heart. Right here in this area where I was getting a chest pain at the idea of John Tavares moving on to the New York Rangers. Pittsburgh over the Islanders 1-0 at the end of the first. Boston and Arizona tied at 1 at the end of the first. Montreal and Calgary in the middle of the first. Calgary up 1-0. Colorado and Tampa tied at 1 with 12 minutes left. Florida just scored, take a 2-0 lead against Winnipeg. And those are the only games in action right now. We'll move through this quickly as we should be because, I don't want to spend too much time on this. You know what, Liz? That's an awesome point. That is an awesome point. That's $250 million more than the Rangers are worth right now. Remember the Rangers we talked about? Was it 1.16 billion or whatever it was? Yeah, I mean, that's literally, it's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, I guess technically the team will only be valued at $650 million, but really when you think about it, it's going to cost them over, that 1.2 bill to bring him in there. It's nuts. It's nuts. But hey, if the National Hockey League can do it, that's the thing about free society, America, and open markets. If you can get $650 million for your expansion franchise, guess what your expansion franchises are worth? $650 million. That's how it works, man. It's exactly how it works. By the way, all the doubters and the naysayers, the people, and we're going to pick on attendance one day coming up soon, because I do have a bunch of stuff on that. But all these people that are like, oh, I don't know, soccer's kind of taking over, and, where's the National Hockey League? Guys, the National Hockey League is growing. When the salary cap started, I don't even remember what the number was. 40 million, 50 million, whatever it was. Now it's up around 70 million. That only goes up when revenues go up. Revenue has continued to go up. TV contracts are going up. Their digital arm is going up. Everything that Gary Bettman is doing in the National Hockey League right now is working. And that's including $500 million for the Golden Knights and now $650 million for the Seattle Grunge. It is all moving in the right direction for the National Hockey League. What did the commissioner for the NFL Goodell just re-signed to? What did he get, a $200 million contract or something insane like that? Roger Goodell's contract extension. Roger Goodell could make more in 5 years than career earnings of Brady and Drew Brees. Yeah, Roger Goodell is a monster. Is a monster. Let's see here. If it has to do with the NFL, it's Adam Schefter. It's unbelievable. They have one insider in the National Football League. 5-year contracts. Source told ESPN's Adam Schefter. A source, yeah. Roger Goodell's best friend. The new contract will be worth over $200 million. About $40 million annually. $40 million annually. That's amazing. That's amazing to me. What does the president of the United States make? What's the leader of the free world make? 400,000? Gary Bettman, I believe, is in that $7 or $12 million mark. He is definitely the lowest paid commissioner out of all the major sports, by far. According to Wikipedia, Bettman is in around $9.5 million, which just increased from $8.8 billion. This is all strictly hearsay. They guess that Adam Silver, the new commissioner for the National Basketball Association, makes around $20 million a year. I think that's a smidge high, especially for an early commissioner. I think that's a smidge high, but still, I mean, they're not going to the poorhouse anytime soon. They're really not going to the poorhouse anytime soon. But Gary Bettman has done everything right. Gary Bettman deserves a pay increase. The teams are making money, so you got to admit everything he's done is right. And this is why I say the National Hockey League is going to expand to Quebec City, and they're going to expand to Houston too. Because when you have ownership and when you have buildings, you take that money and you run. That's $650 million right into the owner's pockets. Right in there. You don't have to answer to anybody. Well, the IRS, but most of them hide that stuff in overseas accounts anyway. So you really don't even have to. You don't even have to really, answer to them, that much at all. Let's see here, $650 million. That is a lot of zeros divided by 31 teams. Hey, good for the Vegas Golden Knights. They get a quick check in this all too. That is almost $21 million a team. Just like that. Just like that. Bettman has got to get ahead of another work stoppage. Totally agree. I don't really foresee another one on the horizon. I really don't. I think this has been so profitable for both the players and the owners that I can't honestly see. You know, the second one came because the first one they put in the cap, and then what happened? All the GMs went and figured out a way to circumvent the cap by giving these long contracts. Well, they chopped that down and they figured that out. Honestly, what's wrong with the financials of the game right now? What are the players going to argue? They want more money? Maybe they can squeak it out, but all that stuff can come to, these are not fundamental. The fundamental issues that were stopping the game from growth have, for the most part, been solved. Hopefully, all the other little issues that they have, they'll be able to negotiate and get past. Hopefully, you know. I think they will be able to. Before we get to John Tavares, one more thing while we're talking about expansion and relocation and all that. We talked about the Hurricanes. They have entered into a purchase agreement that is also pretty significant to make note of, since they're basically, you know, again, when you have these owners meetings, when you have these board of governors meetings, you get a chance to get in here and talk about the business of the league. And this certainly is an important part of it. The Hurricanes entering into a purchase agreement for controlling interest in the team. It will continue to strengthen their commitment to the Raleigh market, according to Gary Bettman. Tom Dundon, a Dallas-based businessman, would become the majority owner, and Peter Carmanos Jr. would retain an equity stake. Bettman said the Hurricanes would not relocate. Financial terms were not disclosed. Commissioner Bettman said, I want to address the one matter about as crystal clear and as absolute terms as I can. Tom Dundon is buying his interest in the Hurricanes to have the Hurricanes in Carolina. This is not a team that is being moved. The rumors that it might be moving somewhere else are absolutely incorrect. Made up fabrications. Wrong, wrong, wrong. I don't doubt this, because here's the other part about this. It's never good when teams move, but you can't be awarding a franchise somewhere and then having another team move. You flat out can't have it, you know? So there's not another owner in the league that's going to allow them to move that team, especially not when you got to. And see, here's the interesting part. Here comes this guy, Tom Dundon. He buys into the team for whatever he's going to pay. Guess what's coming his way in 2 years? A big fat $21 million check coming right back at you. That's a phenomenal investment. Hopefully Dundon had some papers signed before this announcement today. Hopefully this was done last week. Because if I was Carmanos, I'd be like, hey, oh, whoa. My team just went up in value by $21 million. Imagine buying a house knowing full well that house is going to be worth $21 million. I mean, it's insanity what's going on right now. All right, ESPN, which I think is the most despicable thing on the planet for this and for this reason only, took the idea of John Tavares moving on and his possible teams that he could land in and broke it all down in a pretty interesting article. Now, if that wasn't sickening enough for us Islander fans, they then went ahead and said, how about this? If you're still holding on to your lunch, we'll Photoshop his face into all the other teams' jerseys, starting most prominently with the New York Rangers. And that's what we have here for you. This is why I haven't been able to eat all day long. Ugh. Oh, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. Look at John Tavares in that Rangers jersey. Him in the Toronto Maple Leafs jersey does not bother me nearly as much. It really does not. In that Ranger jersey, though, that is a problem for the inside of my soul. That weakens me a little bit. I've never walked in on a significant other cheating on me, but if I had to imagine, this is probably what it feels like, honestly. Honest to goodness. This is probably what it feels like to figure out that your significant other is cheating on you. This is that pit of your stomach. I've heard about it. I've never actually experienced it. But now I feel like I am actually experiencing it. This is the closest I feel like I've ever come to something like this. It's really, honestly, I think I'd almost rather find my wife cheating on me than look at this photo of John Tavares in a New York Rangers jersey. It's honestly, I mean, I can't even. Oh, the Ranger fans are so excited. The Ranger fans are so damn excited. Here's the most heartbreaking thing to me about all of this, because I look at this, again, in one of two ways. And again, I worked for the New York Islanders. I worked for the National Hockey League. I'm well aware of you know, what it's like to work for a professional team. You know, we were all up there working. You couldn't cheer. When the Islanders scored, you couldn't jump up and cheer in the press box. You had to check your emotions at the door, you know. So I know what it's like to be totally unbiased and look at this from a pure hockey evaluation standpoint. You know, so putting my allegiance to the Islanders aside, which I like to do for the most part during this show. I don't like to bring that stuff out when it's fun or we can get a laugh out of it. But being objective and being the hockey host here for a moment, the place that makes the most sense for John Tavares to go, if he were to go, is the New York Rangers. It pains me to say that as an Islander fan, but putting that aside, again, putting the emotions in check, the place that makes the most sense for John Tavares is the New York Rangers. And before I even read this article, we know all the reasons why. They're desperate for a top center. Rick Nash is going to leave. If you had the option between Rick Nash and John Tavares, I mean, Rick Nash's mom would choose John Tavares at this point. That's no surprise to anybody. So you got all of Nash's money going, and you could give all of that and then some to John Tavares to come in here and be your number line center. You imagine what the makeup of that team would look like. 91 up at the top and then 93 behind them on the second line. I mean, that's a great team. That's a great team. Andy on Facebook, Rangers need him. Rangers desperately need a first line center. And here's one of the best in the game. One of the best in the game. And he can't really skate all that good. So, I mean, he would fit right in at Madison Square Garden. They would just love it. They would love it. I remember when, you know, Michael Grabner got there. All the Ranger fans were like looking around like, what's happening? How's he moving that fast? They didn't know what to think. Ranger fans didn't get it. They didn't know how it was working. They thought that he was literally in fast forward. Ranger fans don't know what it's like to see fast skaters. So, bam, he fit right in with the Ranger fans. Right in. Also, he wouldn't have to sell his house. He could still be where he is, unless he wanted to move into the city, you know, but he can still stay here and practice and go to games and everything else. He would still be in the same area. From a hockey standpoint, from a personal standpoint, it makes the most sense for John Tavares to settle on the Rangers. Out of all the people that are in this list, whether he'll go there or not, I'm not 100% sure. I'm really not 100% sure. Daniel, if the Islanders lose him for nothing, it would be crushing. Yes, people here think he's coming to the Leafs. He's from Mississauga. I will definitely address that. I bet he wants $10 million. I bet he wants more. The Rangers got to be whole. This fee. I can't really read that. Sorry, Eddie. The two things that are holding John Tavares back from becoming a New York Ranger, you know what? We'll get to it. Let's go through the list here. Let's go through the list and let's take a look at JT and all these different uniforms, which just flat out breaks my heart. And by the way, and I do want this to be known, and not just as an Islander fan, but again, as Mr. Hockey Talk Show host, I think it makes the most sense for John Tavares to stay as a New York Islander overall. If he's going to leave, Rangers make the most sense. If he stays, just overall, leave or stay, it makes sense for him to stay. He can get the money. He knows where he's at. He's a captain. He's the savior of the franchise. Let's not act like that's not a big deal to him. And maybe the biggest thing about all of it is the Islanders are playing really well right now. Matthew Barzal has breathed new life into this franchise. Jordan Eberle, Joshua Hosang, even Andrew Ladd is clicking and making sense. You know, it's all making sense. So I think it does make the most sense for him to stay. The arena thing, I honestly, and again, this is not coming to you as an Islander fan. This is coming to you totally no bias. The arena flat out doesn't really matter. I mean, I told you this the other night. The city flat out doesn't even matter, because wherever you go, you're going to be traveling on a private jet. You're going to be staying in 4-star hotels. You're going to have a wonderful practice facility. You're going to be living in the best neighborhood in that city. That's exactly how hockey players live everywhere, no matter where the place is. The little things that make a difference. Is there a state tax? That's good for Florida and Texas. Is it cold all the time? The weather. You know, Arizona's appealing because you can play golf all year round. You know, so things like that. But for the most part, it doesn't really matter where the players play. It doesn't matter if he plays in Brooklyn, Belmont, or they go back to the Coliseum, which I don't think they will. So overall, it makes a lot of sense. As far as where I think Tavares belongs, if he doesn't become a New York Ranger and if he doesn't stay, the Tampa Bay Lightning, to me, make a whole hell of a lot of sense. Now, the issue here is going to be salary cap. The Lightning would definitely have to get rid of Ryan Callahan and his 5.8, and John Tavares would have to come in for far less than he's willing to get if he were to stay with the New York Islanders or go with the New York Rangers. So money is the big issue. But if those of you remember, and maybe some of you don't know, believe it or not, Steven Stamkos was going to be a New York Islander. When he went through his year of being off, the big collusion, Paul Kariya / Timu Solani move was that Tavares is close with Stamkos, and Stamkos is going to come up and play in Brooklyn. Could you imagine that 1-2 punch? That 1-2 punch would rival Taves Kane easily, and maybe even Malkin Crosby. It would rival it. It wouldn't be as good. But it would go pound for pound with Taves Kane. That's a lethal combination, Stamkos and Tavares. Why Stamkos decided to stay, you'd have to ask him. But that was the plan for the longest time. It's very well known. It's even pointed out in this ESPN article. I remember hearing about that when Stamkos was a free agent, and I remember being more excited than I was when I found out we were having kids. Not the kids aren't great. I was really excited about that, but I mean, come on. Tavares and Stamkos together? How's that not exciting? Funny now, the idea of Tavares and Stamkos together brings another pit into my stomach. Because if it's going the other way and Tavares is going down to Tampa, that flat out just stinks. But it's possible. But the Lightning would have to move a lot of things around. And I don't know if they can I know they can't give Tavares $10 million over 8 years, which is what a lot of the other teams are going to be willing to give him. But would he take the discount to play with Tampa? If he wants to play with Steven Stamkos, I think he would. Out of all the ridiculousness that's in here, the Toronto Maple Leafs to me is one. The only thing tying John Tavares back to Toronto is the fact that he was born in Mississauga. And anytime any good player comes around, the Toronto media thinks that they're going to come back and want to play with the Maple Leafs because they were born in that area. I just don't buy it. I got news for you, Toronto media. The world doesn't work that way. And by the way, John Tavares is not really all that much for the spotlight. He likes the spotlight, but he also does like his privacy. Keep that in mind. You don't have any when you live and play with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Look at Phil Kessel. Guy was an amazing player. Ruined his career while he was up there. And regained it all with Pittsburgh. So I don't buy him with the Toronto Maple Leafs whatsoever. Toronto has always valued their franchise in the play. Yeah, I mean, the folks in Toronto just think that, or the folks in the media, I should say, just think that, oh, he'll want to come here. But that's not necessarily how most of the players are. And Tavares, I just don't think that he is. By the way, everybody said the same stuff about Stamkos, and he didn't go there either. So I'm not surprised that Tavares is not willing to go there. Literally, their only tie-in is, well, he's from here. Well, it just doesn't work that way. How many players skip there? By the way, the Shattenkirks are few and far between. It's all about money and term for the most part. Playing for your hometown team doesn't really mean all that much. The great thing about the Canadiens is they can throw a slew of money at him, and they need a center. So that just makes sense from that standpoint. I would put that in the same category as the Rangers, but where the Rangers have the advantage is he doesn't have to move. And again, Montreal is one of those markets where, you know, you sneeze the wrong way or you got a nose hair out of place, and it's in 47 magazines the next day. Going to the Detroit Red Wings, I take back my previous statement of the Maple Leafs being ridiculous. This is far more ridiculous. There's no way. Why would he want to go to the Detroit Red Wings? Why? for the free Little Caesars pizza he's going to get for the rest of his life? I don't think so. San Jose Sharks, ESPN considers them a dark horse, which I do as well. Joe Thornton will be on his way out for sure soon. It would make sense to have John Tavares there. I don't know if they'll be able to fit him into the cap. They have Brent Burns. They have Mark-Edward Vlasic. Pavelski, Logan Couture makes $6 million a piece. It would be a tough move for San Jose, but you better believe that they're going to look into it. There's the Rangers. We pointed out everything that we mentioned before. ESPN is not too far off from this. The other thing that I think would keep John back, the two things that I mentioned before. One would be he is not a spotlight guy. The reason why he likes the Islanders, when you think about it, the Islanders is the perfect place for him. New Jersey would be a similar situation. You get to enjoy all the fruits of a big market without have to paying the cost for it. Remember when Lindros was here? Remember when Mark Messier was playing? They were in the papers all the time. There was always, like, not like for bad things, but, you know, if Mark Messier went to dinner for somewhere, he'd show up in page 6. You know, not all the time, but it would happen. You know, that's not John Tavares' speed. He's not that kind of a guy. He is a very private person. He doesn't share all that much. He doesn't go for that kind of spotlight. He likes being the captain of the team. He likes being the leader. He likes being the cornerstone of the franchise. He likes being relied upon. He doesn't like the spotlight necessarily. There's a big difference. And with the Rangers, he would be scrutinized a lot, which is why he wouldn't go to Toronto, which is why Montreal wouldn't work. So I think that's one thing the Rangers have going against him. The other thing, for the most part, this is a business. I don't think that the players obtain rivalries as bad as the fans do. Fan would never switch from an Islander to a Ranger fan or vice versa. You don't grow up loving the Montreal Canadiens and then all of a sudden decide you're going to be a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. It doesn't work that way, you know. But with John Tavares, the one thing we do know is he is fiercely loyal. I mean, fiercely loyal. If all things were equal, which it looks like they're going to be, I think he stays a New York Islander. If the Islanders and the Rangers offer the same amount of money and term, I don't think he goes. And by the way these teams are built, I do think the Islanders are built better to win. Because the Rangers, again, Henrik Lundqvist goes down for 30 games. You better hope whoever the backup is at the time is going to be amazing, because that could be your whole damn season. They're too paper thin there. The goaltending with the Rangers, definitely better. Coaching, definitely better. But the team, you know, I'm sorry, the Islanders are built better. The Islanders are built a hell of a lot better. So those two things in mind, all things equal, I think he stays. If he does want to move on, the Rangers are a really good option. The Vancouver Canucks are interesting with the Sedins going. That could work. You have Bo Horvat. You have Brock Boeser. Media coverage is pretty big in Vancouver. It is a nice place to be. I don't know. I guess it could work. But for the most part, I don't really see it happening. And again, salary cap is going to be an issue with all these places. The world changed for John Tavares when Connor McDavid had re-signed for $12.5, which, by the way, if you remember that time, the rumors were it was going to be $13.5. John Tavares can easily command $11 million. Easily. By the way, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he looks at Connor McDavid and says, I want 12. He can ask for it. It would be debilitating to the franchise that he goes to, I think, but he can ask for it. He's on a cap-friendly deal right now. He took less money to stay with the Islanders right now. He could have gotten more. There's that loyalty I was talking about. But he wanted to leave some money on the table so that the team could go out and do what they had to do. And they did. They brought in Ladd. They brought in Jordan Eberle. He costs more. Ladd was a trade-off with Okposo, but still, they gave him a lot of term. I think he'll do the same thing. I think he'll get 10 or 11. I think 11 would be the number. And I think he'll get the 8 years if he wants it, which he does. The Islanders have that to offer him. And thank God for the Islanders that Matthew Barzal has come along, because if not, we would not be talking this positively about it. I don't think the arena matters as much. I don't think it matters as much as people think. But I do think the team's play was more important. And again, we talked about this yesterday with the trade bait. Garth Snow is sitting there with a couple of first and second round picks that are extra, and he better go out and use them no matter what. I don't even care what's available. Just go out and get a seventh defenseman. You know, get a 13th forward. Just get it. Just have it there. Because if you want to make a long playoff run, you had better have depth. And I think he should go out and do that. I honestly think that that's what's holding Tavares back. I think the fact that he didn't sign is he wanted to see what the team did, where they were going. And right now they are trending super up. I mean, super up. They were always on the way up. But right now they are just, they're projected to be a really, really strong team for the next few years because of who they have. So I think he's in more of a position to re-sign right now. I do think he is going to wait to see what the arena situation is. But it's going to be messed up because they're not going to be able to get in there for at least 3 years anyway. You know, I mean, this is New York. You could probably build an arena in 2. I think they built Vegas in 2, but they build everything in Vegas quicker than everywhere else. I think it's 3 years at least. They're in the Barclays till 19, so they'll have to figure out what they're going to do in that bridge year. The Coliseum would be a possibility, I guess. It wouldn't be that bad to put them in there for a year or two while they're building the other place. But we'll have to wait and see. But I don't think it matters. And by the way, I do think, much like how Key Arena was a cakewalk once the Oakview group got involved, I do think that Belmont is going to be a cakewalk for the Islanders. By the way, there were 3 parties involved in the Belmont Arena, and one of them has dropped out. So right now it's the New York City Football Club that is interested, and it's the National Hockey League, New York Islanders. I think the Islanders are obviously going to get there. I really, really do. All right. I think we covered everything for tonight. A little bit longer than I thought we were going to go. A little technical difficulties, but we fought through it. Thank you guys for sticking around for that. Should be a 6 o'clock show tomorrow, maybe 5:30. And we'll preview the weekend's action and talk about some of the other things that are going on. And we'll continue to delve into Seattle expansion, because to me, that is the big story. That is the big story, that Seattle is coming, and so quickly. And it was Gary Bettman who said it, and he opened up the possibility, welcomes the Bruckheimer group, David Bonderman in there to become the owners, authorize them to file an application. They'll obviously get approved. You know, that'll be the thing. All right, prediction. You heard it here first. Sandra, John Tavares goes to the Seattle Grunge. There you go. You heard it there first. I love it. Tavares signs a bridge deal, 2 years to stay with the Islanders until he can move over there and go to Seattle. He can bring in the league maximum. He can ask for $14 million. What's the single player maximum? It's like $14 million or something, $13 million. He can ask for it now. They'll have plenty of room. Tavares in a Seattle Grunge uniform. We'll have to wait and see. Seattle glue sniffers? Maybe. Could be a little bit of an image thing with public relations. But, you know, again, we're not here to cross off any ideas. Absolutely not. All right, with Tavares going to the Seattle Grunge, we'll leave it at that. See you guys on tomorrow's show. Remember to share this video around on Facebook or YouTube. Spread the word. Rate and review on the podcast if you guys are listening there. And we will see you guys tomorrow for the last live show of the week.